I just wanted to ask my worthy guests if they wanted to, include something to whatever they have earlier said in their speech, especially, Michael. He must have felt that he wanted to include something because he was the first one, and two of the other speakers, they had a lot to share, and of course, Mike might be having some questions. So, Mike, if you have questions, floor belongs to you, sir.
Well, thank you all. And, I just really have one question on my mind, and it's a little bit peripheral to Afghanistan, but it's about China and Pakistan. And by the way, I actually am happy as an American strategist to see the China-Pakistan relationship develop positively. And the main reason I say that, well, maybe there are at least two reasons. One is I don't want the US-China relationship to sort of deteriorate into a zero-sum competition across all issues. And I know that Professor Hayan has agreed with that perspective in his own remarks. But secondly, from an American strategist point of view, and also at a personal level, a friend of Pakistan, I have to want the stability of Pakistan. The stability of Pakistan is even more important than the stability of Afghanistan, because the stability of Pakistan involves more than 200 million people. It involves a nuclear armed country, and it involves a nation that still has significant territorial disputes with India, one of the world's other great powers, and therefore has the potential through a dynamic that could get out of hand to contribute to the terrible tragedy of another Indo-Pakistani war. So for all of those reasons, I want to see Pakistan succeed. And therefore, I'm very curious about CPAC. And my question is to ask both Chinese and Pakistani friends on the call, how well is the cooperation working, the Belt and Road Initiative and other dimensions of the economic partnership? And the reason, with a specific final point, that when we hear discussion of the Belt and Road Initiative in the United States, there are at least three different aspects that people discuss. One is that it is a Chinese ambition to create more influence, not just markets, but more geostrategic influence around the world. And my reaction to that is, sure, probably right, but that's okay. That's what great powers do. So we can't blame China because it wants more influence. But then people say, some of the Chinese Belt and Road projects are not very good. For example, some of the ones in Africa involve dictatorships where the terms of the deal are not very favorable to the host country, and where the transparency of the deal may have been obscured. And therefore, there, sometimes, whether it's Africa or Sri Lanka or someplace like that, you see assets ultimately defaulted to a Chinese company because the host country was not able to make payments. And that would suggest that some of the projects in Belt and Road are not very healthy. However, I've also been told by Brookings colleagues that when China invests in sort of a mid-income country like Southeast Asia, most of the Southeast Asian nations, or Pakistan, that Belt and Road is actually mutually beneficial in most of those cases. The terms of the deal and the kinds of projects that are being pursued are generally good. We know that Pakistan at some times has worried that it was getting too much debt, that China wanted to build big, massive infrastructure, and that might have been a little bit too expensive and left Pakistan with too much debt. But I also know that some of that Chinese infrastructure is very important for economic growth. So can you help inform me about just how well China-Pakistan economic cooperation is working to the mutual benefit of the two countries, and in specific terms, the Belt and Road Initiative? Thank you.
I would request my worthy guests if they wanted to answer the question. Janatarik, if he's not there, then I would request, Janatarik, sir. Sir, please.
Michael, as far as the CPEC is concerned, it is moving along and progressing quite well. It has certain phases, and right now we've just about concluded the phases which involved communication infrastructure, and that was the roads connecting the port city and the other cities and right up to going up to China. So that's more or less complete, but there were some delays. But while those delays were there, instead of waiting for it to be completed to begin the second phase started while it was still in progress. And the second phase involves power infrastructure, energy, and certain manufacturing and things of this sort, and that's going on well also. We have our first HDVC line, which is it's a high velocity direct current line, which will reduce line losses all over the country, and it will improve energy being distributed. So I think the CPEC is moving along correctly. But your concerns related to the BRI, which I think would be better answered by our guests from China. But let me tell you one thing. There's a question which always has been put to us in certain far-flung areas where we had to operate for development. Do you stabilize an area first and then go for development, or do you do development and hope to get stability through it? So this is the kind of balance which one has to decide. At least we've been involved in that in many places, and we think that one should do it parallel to this to the aspects of bringing in stability. Development must go parallel as much as it can, and if it can do that, it will probably, they're mutually helpful to one another. But having said all this, I just want to point out one more thing. CPEC is not to my mind, CPEC is not an exclusive kind of an activity. It is an inclusive activity. In fact, its success depends upon the stakeholders. So the more the stakeholders, the more success is going to have. And therefore, it cannot keep people out of it. It has to bring people into it. So this is what I wanted to say. I hope I've answered some of your doubts or questions.
Thank you very much, sir. And